Good day, all. I'm Peter Scove for Music is a Journey. We're doing episode 23, and today's episode is going to be about the top 25 black metal albums as per what I found on the internet. So let's cue it off with this! Alright, so I just gotta say, before we even get started with this list, last week, Thursday, that was November 14th, as of this recording time, I went to see Emperor in concert down in Shibuya in Tokyo. And what a fabulous concert that was. Alright, so I don't get out to concerts very much because usually they're in the evenings, right? And that's usually when I'm working, so I usually can't go. But anyway, there was Emperor with Deafheaven, and it was just so happened to be a holiday, which actually wasn't really a day off for me. It just meant I didn't have any classes, so I could ask my manager, my boss, and got the day off. And so I went with a coworker down to see Emperor and Deafheaven. What a great show. First of all, Deafheaven, I was only familiar with one or two of their album covers. I really didn't know their music. It's this kind of post-rock, post-metal crossed over with shoegaze or black metal and I don't know, whatever else you want to call it, but they were really good. And I first of all got to say that the singer, George Clark, vocalist anyway, he was really quite a showman. He was moving around on stage and he was like glaring out at the audience and making gestures like this, and he looked like he was kind of psychotic, but he would also stand up and do these things with the music and put out his hands and like this. I don't know, whatever. He was great. The music was very good. I really liked that post-rock, post-metal melodic stretch out parts that they did. That was fabulous. And there was this one part where they were slowly building this beautiful scene in the music, and it was building up and went to the next stage, and you just felt like the band was there, the audience was there, we were all on this ride together, and you could see it in Chris Johnson, bass player, and what's his name, Mira, one of the guitarists. They looked at each other, and Chris Johnson just kind of smiled, and it was like, we're locked in. This is that moment where the musicians are just locked into the music and they're all in it together and the audience is there in it. It was fabulous. And of course then they went on to do something really heavy. And when they finished their fourth song, the songs are kind of long, like 8 to 11 minutes long. So when they finished the fourth one, George Clark said, okay, this is going to be our last song for the evening. And I just felt like, I was really enjoying this. And it just seemed the whole audience just went like, So he was like, yeah, I know, tell me about it, right? Anyway, so they were great. And then, I actually, because I was so impressed with them, I've ordered their Ordinary Corrupt Human Love CD, which is the newest one, and Sunbather, which is, I think it was on Rolling Stone's top 100 metal albums of all time as number 94. So anyway, had to get that one. And, Emperor came on. Of course, that's the act everyone came to see. We all had t-shirts pretty much, most of us anyway. And they were great. They were not as animated as Deafheaven, but of course they are more traditional Norwegian black metal, not an American band crossing black shoegaze and post-metal stuff. So, I mean, different acts, right? But I was really impressed because I have a couple of Emperor albums, as you will find out, but I think I never listened to them that deeply because I noticed lots of cool riffs, lots of really cool stuff happening in the music, and so I think I'll have to listen to those albums again. Okay, there we go. Great review for Emperor and Deafheaven. Fantastic job, people. Well done. And I took lots of photos, so yeah, you probably already seen them. I've been sticking them into the video. Yeah, so now let's move on to the top 25 black metal albums of all time as chosen by the internet. But just before that, I gotta tell you about my experience with black metal. Back in the 80s, I discovered a band called Bathory, and in fact, it was this album here, The Return. I went into a CD store, or a record store. There weren't that many CDs at that time. I was looking at the cassettes and thinking, okay, I want to get something new and interesting. What's out there? And of course, there were all these metal album covers, big muscular guys with axes and demonic figures and all sorts of satanic imagery. And then I came across this one here, this moon in the clouds. Bathory, The Return. What on earth was that? I'll buy it. So I bought it, I took it home, and it was just really unlike... It was one of those wow moments. Just like when I heard Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance, or when I heard Metallica Ride the Lightning. This was another one of those wow, what's this moments. It was freaking heavy. And I had never heard vocals like this before. I used to do this impression at my junior high school. There was only 3 of us who actually listened to Bathory, the whole freaking school. And I used to go around doing this impression of the vocals, which I don't think I can really do anymore. But, very interesting point about the vocals, which I'll bring up later on. Vocals by Quorthon. Yeah, anyway. So that's how I kind of got into that. And of course, at that time, that was just the first wave of black metal. And it was still kind of formulating. You know, there was Venom, there was Bathory, there was Celtic Frost, Hellhammer, and a few other bands. It hadn't really become what it was until the second wave came along with the Norwegian bands in the 80s. In the 90s. But, yeah, anyway, I fell off with metal for a while there, for many years. Somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, I kind of left it. And just some years ago, a friend of mine showed me this book, True Norwegian Black Metal, Photography by Peter Best. And I was really impressed with the book. I mean, for me, it was like black metal, it's all about Satan and so on. I kind of outgrew that a long time ago. That's why I gave away or sold off all my cassettes. But it was very interesting to see the culture behind this. And of course, Norwegian black metal culture includes church burnings, murders, and so on. So it's, you know, not something I support. But just the look, you know, let's see if I can find just some decent... yeah, everybody's out in the forest, cold. All these people walking around in cold forests. Yeah, well, you know, just stuff like this, right? It's just neat. I just thought, like, the imagery, the I don't know, the culture, it's just really intriguing anyway. So, as it turns out, my friend went through a bit of trouble with a wife that's now an ex-wife, and his book disappeared. And so we thought we'd track it down on Amazon to see how much it was. As it turned out, we got this for about $44. So I ordered 2. He got 1, I got 1. And yeah, really fabulous book. So that started to get me interested in black metal, the whole Norwegian scene, you know, what was going on with all that. And yeah, I started to check out some of the bands. And then it was really a curious thing. It wasn't all about, you know, Satan rules and all this kind of thing. There was just a lot of darkness, a lot of coldness. But yeah, there were very few bands that seemed to really be about, you know, Hail Satan, this kind of thing. So I'm putting the book back over here. Hope it doesn't fall down. Yeah, and I actually started to really enjoy a lot of what I was listening to. So, it was then that I decided to find out, well, okay, there's this whole big mess of black metal out there. What do I want to listen to? And that's when I consulted the internet and started checking which are the highest rated albums of the most well-known bands, and I started to buy up quite a few of that stuff, those albums there. And yeah, now it's something I enjoy listening to. I'll put on black metal albums, and unlike a lot of other types of albums where I'll be listening for specific songs, I usually find a black metal album, similar to death metal, can just listen to the whole thing all the way through, and it's the whole general atmosphere that I really can get into. Okay, so what about this list? Well, what I did was, same with the old school death metal list I did earlier this year and the 1980s thrash metal list I did earlier this year. what I did was to check several lists on the internet, and I checked one called bestblackmetalalbums.com, top 25, the top 10s, 10 of course, Loudwire, the top 30, Metal Injection, 40, 40 albums, Decibel Magazine, 100, Metal Storm, 100, thoughtco.com, 11, why 11? Treblezine for 10, Digital Dream Door 50, IGN.com for 10, and Metal Music Archives, I checked the top 25. You can, with Metal Music Archives, you can set in what the parameters of the search. So I just put in, 25 highest ranked albums across the board for black metal, any year, any country, any whatever. And so that's how I got that. So there are actually a lot of lists, which means that black metal actually has a lot of people paying attention to it. Okay, let's see here. Let's get started. So what I did was anytime an album appeared in a top 25 list, I gave it 1 point. So we're going to start with albums that got 3 points, which means out of all those lists I checked, what is it, about a dozen or so? These albums appeared on 3 of those lists. The first one is Battles in the North by Immortal. Image here, because I haven't bought it yet. I'll get there. There's just so much music to buy. But here we go. Battles in the North by Immortal. Don't worry, Immortal appear on the list a few times. Next up, Marduk, Opus Nocturne. Okay, that's really hard to see. It's a very dark cover, but there's like all these people wearing leather and metal loincloths and stuff. I don't know. And they're all chanting around some giant demonic figure holding up, I think it's a... No, it's just like energy from the sky coming. Well, whatever. Anyway, Marduk Opus Nocturne is a 3-point scoring album. Strangely enough, there's another Marduk album. I forget which one it is now. It actually scored, I think, on Rolling Stone's top 100 metal albums or something, but not on the black metal album list. Anyway, there's that. Also, with 3 points, Sarcophago, INRI. Anyway, this is what, like 1987? And what's interesting is that there's a lot of talk about, Norwegian black metal and what was the first black metal band. A lot of people point out that in Brazil, there was this whole, extreme metal music movement, can I speak, going on. And yeah, there was like some basically beginnings of black metal. There was this Christian, anti-Christian imagery. I think there's even one song here that curses at our Lord and Savior. I shouldn't say that so sarcastically. But anyway, yeah. And the stuff like the Black Vomit, whatever, Satanas, all that kind of thing. So that was 1987. Now, it's not like Venom didn't do that kind of stuff before, but these guys did it with the kind of blast beat drumming style that later on became one of the trademarks of black metal music. So, Sarcophago Inri from Brazil, 1987, I think it is. There's no date on the back, but something like that. 3 points. A band called Weakling, Dead as Dreams. I actually tried to track that one down. It seems it's, if I remember correctly, a little hard to get a hold of. So I have no opinion about that one. And then, how do you read this guy? Take. Anyway, Scandinavian. Here he is holding a couple of skulls. This is the only album of his I've heard so far. What is it called anyway? I have to check this one here. Hordalands Dulskvel. Hordalands Dulskvel. Something like that. He's Norwegian, I think. I can speak some Danish, so I am murdering Norwegian by trying to speak it as Danish through an Anglophonic accent. Pardon me. But anyway, that is also a 3-point album. I think the whole thing is just a sequence of songs with the same title. There's part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. Very good Norwegian black metal. Exactly what you would expect from a black metal album. I might want to check out some of his other stuff. He does have quite a few albums though, so... Anyway, then we have... Beherit, I think they said before on the internet somewhere. Drawing Down the Moon. This is interesting because this is Finnish black metal, and as we saw with the death metal list, the Finns have a different way of doing things. It doesn't sound like your typical Norwegian black metal at all. This somehow is just like a... I don't know, it's slower, it's heavier. It doesn't seem to have that same typical Norwegian feel at all. But very intriguing album anyway. And apparently they only managed to get one album out, and I think an EP or something, if I remember correctly, before they just kind of disappeared. But hey, their one full-length release managed to get into the top lists of black metal albums, so well done there. Okay, Drawing Down the Moon, Beherit. Moving along, we have two more with 3 points. Dark Throne, Under a Funeral Moon. I don't have it yet, but there's more Dark Throne to talk about, so we'll just talk about them when we get there. Venom, black metal. Now, of course, this is not a true black metal album because it is more, it's British new wave of heavy metal, but kind of speed metal, proto-thrash. It's not really into the black metal thing yet. However, it does give the name of black metal, and it does have a lot of the occult imagery and themes. Of course, Venom were not really practicing Satanists. They were just really great showmen using that as a theme. Classic band, classic album. I had it in junior high school. I had this as a t-shirt. On the backside, I had Welcome to Hell. And after a while, I just thought, yeah, I'm tired of all this satanic stuff, and I just got rid of all my stuff. So now I'm buying Venom again on CD, have Welcome to Hell as well. Okay, that's it for 3 points. Let's go to the 4-point albums. That means they were on the top 25 in 4 of those lists I checked. If it's a top 100 list or top 40 or whatever, I only checked the albums that were in the top 25 to begin with. So any album that was, 26 or up, higher numbers just didn't make it. So anyway, that means that Immortals, Sons of Northern Darkness appeared 4 times in the top 25. I like this one. This was my first Immortal album. I really like Demonium. That was a great song, and overall this is cool. My friend who went with me to Emperor recommended this because of the Sons of Northern Darkness song. Anyway, cool. Then also, Dissection the Somberlane. That's their first album. I don't have it yet, maybe. But Dissection will appear later on the list, so do stick around. So now we go up to 5 points, and the first one I'm going to mention here is Ulva with... I probably can do better off saying Ulva because I know it means the wolves in Danish, or wolves in Danish, but this is Bertat, and it's in 5 chapters. That's the best I'm going to tell you. And not only is it Norwegian, and I have to try to read it with a Danish accent, but it's writing here too. Holy smokes. Okay, anyway, this was their debut. I think they were like 16, 17 years old when they did this. And so a lot of people say there's a kind of youthful, I don't want to say innocence, but like first time kind of an effort to it, but at the same time it's so sincere that it is really highly rated. And Ulva stuck with the Norwegian black metal sound for only a couple of albums, and after that they really started going off and experimenting with other things. And in fact, for a couple of years I kept hearing about them and then checking out their albums and going, nah, not really. But yeah, this one here, their debut, very good, very cool. And there's this one interesting track. It's about this, I think it's a woman who's lost in the mountains and gets this kind of madness from being lost in the mountains. And there's one part where it's just the sound of somebody breathing and pacing through the snow in, I guess, snowshoes or something. Okay, also with 5 points. This one I found really interesting. By Negura Bungut. This is a band, Bungut, I almost saying this like I'm from India, but they're from Romania actually. And this is a double disc, including that album plus another one. What I really liked about this is that this is kind of like black metal moving on. It's gone past the Norwegian sound. They've got their own sound. It does have that kind of coldness and that kind of emptiness and almost an insane feeling to it, but they put in a lot of sounds from Romanian folk instruments and some other things that make this one really different from a lot of the others. So I really found myself enjoying this album here. So it has 5 points. Well done there, boys. And then we go on to Dark Throne. I told you there was more Dark Throne. This one here, Transylvanian Hunger. I like it, but I have one weird thing about this. I wonder if anybody else has this. This CD version, all of the songs, the song finishes, and then there's like some feedback or some chatting or some additional noise, and it just cuts. And when it was the first track I heard that, I thought, oh, okay, I see what they did there. But it's like every track does that. It's like the recording is not actually finished. Like, it just cuts. So, I don't know. I find that a little bit annoying, which means that this album is a little less enjoyable to listen to than another Dark Throne album, which is coming up later on. Okay, Dark Throne. Also 5 points. Immortal, Pure Holocaust. I find this one a little less enjoyable simply because it's just basically blasting all the way through. There's less variety to it, but nevertheless a good, solid, intense album. And one interesting thing here, as I understand it, the drummer, I've forgotten his name now, was not actually on the album. He joined after the recording, so they put his picture on the cover, Immortal being a three-piece band. And I think he stuck with them for, I don't know, he actually never played on an album? And he left the band or was fired from the band during the tours or before the next album. And then later on, he, I don't know, suffered from depression or something and ended up killing himself. So that's a very sad story, but he certainly fits the image here. Nice cover work for that one. Okay, Immortal, Pure Holocaust, and of course also Burzum, Vis Lucit Taos, If the Light Should Take Us. And the original cover here, I think it's a sketch called The Pauper. There is a very emaciated, if not dead person lying here at the side of the road. And one thing I like about this cover is my parents, coming from Denmark, had a lot of these Danish landscape scenes of forests and just dirt roads going through the forest. And that really intrigued me when I saw this cover because it reminded me of this kind of artwork my parents had, but at the same time we have this, I don't know, poor soul at the side of the road here, so interesting. Okay, and one more album scoring 5 points. We have, Bathory, Under the Sign of the Black Mark, which I used to have on cassette, but I didn't like it as much as the return or the debut, and in the end it just went away. Now I probably have to get it on CD once again. Okay, we're going to move on to albums with 6 points. Albums scoring 6 points are Burzum's Philosophum, which I don't have. Might get it, maybe, not so sure. Burzum, I liked the previous album because of one song. The riff was really cool, and a couple of other songs were kind of interesting, but Burzum is, anyway, kind of special, I think. I often think the vocals sound more like some maniac guy who's been locked away in a dungeon for the last 30 years, and he's just like shouting maniacally at the top of his lungs. But, maybe. Anyway, moving along, Emperor, 6 points. Emperor, Anthems to the Welkins at Dusk. And, of course, they played a few songs, all of the songs, from this album here at the concert. That was really cool. This is also listed in some top metal album. I think it was the Rolling Stones list included this one as well. It's a little bit far down the list here, only 6 points. Total highest scoring album was 9 points, but still definitely a classic black metal band, a classic album, and probably the beginnings of that symphonic black metal sound. So Emperor, Anthems to the Welkins at Dusk. Undeniably a classic black metal album, I think. 7 points. 7 points now. Moving up. Here we go. Immortal again. Are you tired of seeing them yet? This is the 4th album on the list. At the Heart of Winter. What can I say? This is probably Immortal at one of their most creative stages, at least from what I've heard anyway. Definitely a standout album in their catalog of standout albums. So there we have it. At the Heart of Winter scoring 7 points. Also, Bathory again. Blood, Fire, Death. I actually never listened to this one. After Under the Sign of the Black Mark, I didn't buy any more Bathory albums. But this one is very good. Lots of really good riffs, cool songs on here. Cawthorn's vocals. Very nice. And probably the beginnings of moving towards the Viking metal sound, I think. Okay, Bathory, 7 points, did I say? Satyricon, Nemesis Divina. And I really like how they've done this. It's coming apart is what it is. There's a booklet inside with hardcover and so on, but it looks like my booklet is starting to fall out. This is one heck of a great Norwegian black metal album. They are Norwegian, aren't they? Yes, they are. Silly of me to ask. Yeah, just terrific. Really like this one here. And just the overall package, the cover and everything, pretty damn cool. Satyricon, Nemesis Divina. All right, still on 7 points. One more. Dark Throne, Ablaze in the Northern Sky. And when I first, this is my first Dark Throne album that I ever got. Look at that. It's, you know, again, booklet, double thing, 2 discs. Yeah, this one, I heard this, I thought, wow, hey, Dark Throne are really good, and very easy to get into this. However, I did hear that this is their transitional album. The previous album was more of a death metal album, and this is kind of transitioning from death metal into black metal. So maybe that's why it was easier for me to latch onto this, because I was already listening to death metal at the time. Anyway, very good album, and I think it's also their highest ranking one on our list here today. 7 points for Ablaze in the Northern Sky. Few more albums to go. 8 points on 8 of the lists I checked. I don't remember how many it was. Dissection, Storm of the Light's Bane. And this is really cool. It's a full album here, plus some bonus tracks, unreleased alternatives, unreleased demo, and so on. A great package here, 2 CD set. This album, they said that after their first one, they really wanted to do something different and kind of upgrade their ability. So there it is, a success. It is the, one of the top 3 albums on the list here. So Dissection, The Storm of Light's Bane. Storm of the Light's Bane. And also with 8 points, Mayhem! Good heavens, we waited this long to get to Mayhem, one of the earliest bands and probably the band to kick off the Norwegian black metal sound because of Euronymous' guitar playing style, those chords that he put out and his way of playing. Mayhem, De Mysteries Dom Satanas, or something like that. This is a very interesting album because it features, what's his name, Attila on vocals, but some of the songs were actually written and sung by their former singer, Dead, who, as you probably know the story, ended up shooting himself with a shotgun in the head and making a terrible mess, and Euronymous taking a piece of his skull and making a necklace out of it, and taking pictures, which later on were used in color as the cover of another album. Anyway, whatever, Mayhem. This, they're just a classic band. They're still out there. They're still going. Necro Butcher, I like him. He's been on the Banger TV on some of their movies and their videos. Cool guy, interesting band. And probably the absolute core of the Norwegian black metal movement because of Euronymous and his shop Helvet, where everybody gathered and basically the whole black metal scene. He was the nucleus of the whole thing. Anyway, so there's that one. It is a bit of a strange album because while the music is fabulous, the vocals are not quite your typical black metal vocals. You know, the black metal ones have that more back of the throat kind of like battery sound. It's the one thing I found with I'm gonna make myself choke. Black metal. How many bands actually had the vocals sound like Corthon of Bathory when I first started listening? It's like, wow, what did he kick off? Anyway, Mayhem, 8 points. That brings us to, I'm making myself choke, up to the 9-point scoring album. That means it was on, I don't know, was it 10 or 12 lists I checked? Whatever. Emperor, In the Nightside Eclipse. I believe this is their debut album. Something that's interesting is that for most of these extreme metal bands, like death metal, thrash metal, black metal, it's usually the first or second album that makes it near the top of the list. For some reason. I guess it's because it's new, it's fresh, it's introducing this whole new subgenre, so it just gets a lot of respect and praise and love. And so here we have In the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor, their debut album. 9 points. Basically the top ranking black metal album out of all those lists I checked combined. There you have it. Okay, a few other albums I just wanted to mention before we wrap up. Bathory's debut. I didn't like it as much as The Return before, but listening to it now, yeah, I really feel that the black metal sound can be found in here. It's like there was Venom, and then there was Bathory, and then the Norwegian scene. So going back to this now, it actually sounds much more intriguing than before. So Bathory's debut, worthy of mention. It did appear on some of those lists, just not frequently enough. Dimmuborga, who are named after a volcanic rock formation in Iceland. Yeah, this one here is Enthroned Darkness Triumphant. This is my one and only Dimmuborgir album. It's very good too. I really found myself pleasantly surprised listening to this because I had sampled some of their music and thought, maybe, yeah, okay, yeah. And then I got this and like, oh yeah, okay, this is cool. I really like this one. Looking at getting one or two other Dimmer Borgir albums probably in the new year. But anyway, Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, it was on some of the lists, but again, not enough to actually make it. And of course, one band that got mentioned a lot was Rotting Christ. 2 albums, Thy Mighty Contract, for heaven's sake, I can't get this loose. Anyway, Thy Mighty Contract, and one other album. Did I have it written down here? Rotting Christ, Non Serviam, and The Mighty Contract. And the problem was one or the other was mentioned, so I guess the votes got split. But anyway, that's it. The top 25 black metal albums as per the internet. And a couple of extra selections I wanted to mention. Probably could also mention this one here. Blut au Nord, however you pronounce it, The Work Which Transforms God, is also fairly well mentioned. This is a promo copy I have for some reason. Anyway, that's it for episode 27 of Music is a Journey, black metal albums. One more episode to go for this year, 2019. It's coming later. Anyway, thanks for watching today. Any comments, please leave them. Okay, ciao everybody. Next time.
Of this Anthems album have we been playing, and it's for us an epic one. It's called With Strength I